Romans chapter 8, the verse 1 and 2. There is therefore now no condemnation to them that are in Christ Jesus, who walk not after the flesh but after the Spirit. Now look at the next verse. He says, for the law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus has made me free from the law of sin and death. Now this is very interesting. The Bible here is teaching us about two spiritual laws: the law of sin and death, and the law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus. These laws are stemming from two spiritual fathers. Our first spiritual father called Adam, and our second and last spiritual father called Christ. The Bible is telling us that under our first spiritual father, the sin and disobedience of Adam made all of us sinners, and the effect of that sin nature produced death, and that death became a law. So just like the law of gravity cannot be broken, the Bible is telling us that the law of sin and death cannot be broken. No matter how good you are, without Christ, your good works are dead works. That's what the Bible is teaching us. So anything you produce before God is still death. So death, spiritual death, is actually not just a state, it's a law. They called it the law of sin and death. No amount of good can change that law of operation called sin and death inside you. So for you to be redeemed by the law of sin and death, there had to be a higher law by another man called Jesus. And through his death, his burial, resurrection, ascension, and sitting, a new law was established called the law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus, so that when Christ is in you, a new law called life is operating from you. I'm teaching good here. So since the Bible has given us the distinction that there are two laws called the law of sin and death and the law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus, remember the law of gravity states that anything that goes up must come down. So for you to override that law, you will need a higher law called the law of aerodynamics. Likewise, the law of sin and death was in operation in the life of every man that was without Christ. And through Jesus Christ, a new higher law was established. And through that law, men can receive life and have a new law operating in them.